Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 12th of October 2019, and our guest today is a channeler of extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings. He calls himself a direct experience-based hidden truth researcher, a book and screenplay author, producer, music composer, and international speaker. R. Scott Lemriel. Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and good morning to you, R. Scott Lemriel, joining us from Southern California near Los Angeles. Welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Lucas. Good pleasure to be here. I've seen some of the people you've had on. I know Dr. Michael Salla, know some of the other people. Actually, Michael Salla wrote the two book reviews for both of my published books, so we're friends.
Great.
Yeah.
You are a long-time channeler of extraterrestrial and interdimensional alien beings who provide you with messages and hidden secrets about what our world and the universe is really like. But what on earth are you doing? Or should I rephrase that? What are you doing on Earth?
Exactly. Well, I'm not really a channeler of other beings. I don't channel other beings, but it's understandable that you would say it that way because we have to get used to new terms. If I'm doing new work here in a new way that's never been done before, then I usually put out, I'm a direct experience-based hidden truth revealing researcher, author, international speaker, and that kind of thing. And they go, what does that mean? Well, it means that my work is based only on direct experience with beings from other worlds, beings from other realities and other dimensions that I meet with and have met with all my life. But they don't channel through me. I actually meet with them and, being to being.
In what way do you meet with them?
Well, for instance, if I'm talking with you now, and I have a friend called Ambassador Tyrellian. He's human, but he's not from Earth. And I work with him. Then I'm speaking with him telepathically because that's a normal function for many beings in other worlds, telepathy.
So it is some kind of channeling. Is it related to clairvoyance?
No. I wish I could say that it is. Telepathy isn't really clairvoyance. See, okay, if you want to use it as seeing into other realities, the Atma, what we are, has the capability to see into other realities. People on Earth are not brought up from birth learning anything about what the creative imagination is or where it comes from. Correct? I mean, most people are taught when they have a dream, it's in your head, forget about it. This is not accurate. I'll give you an example of what I mean, and this may be shocking, but it's true. The brain that's in a skull of a human being doesn't have any mechanism in it, like a motion picture camera and a movie projector screen on which you see things. People just assume that growing up, they're not taught differently. But in reality, it's the being that runs a physical body, a DNA structure like this, that sees imaginatively into the multiverse. People aren't taught this. They're not taught growing up how to be confident with it, so it's alien territory to them. But it's not alien territory to many other beings, including human, that live on many other worlds in our galaxy. People on Earth are destined to discover this anyway. I think we all know that. Disclosure is on its way, one way or another.
So in a way you are, let's say, downloading messages from this being. And is that being a human being, but from another world? Or is it what you would term an extraterrestrial looking alien being?
No, the Say rays from the, for instance, like this book, I should maybe help out a little bit here. This is one of my 2 published books that's out in the world right now, right? What you see on the front of this book is a mile-long cylindrical shaped anti-gravitic, it's called an Emerald Star Cruiser. And these are Scout class vehicles in current times, pretty modern, 3 semi-spheric pods underneath. People have seen these kind of ships. They often see ships like this flash in and glow around. They look spherical or flash out or move across the sky. And that's because the electromagnetic field, the electrogravitic field around them, excites the ions in the atmosphere, just like an aurora borealis. It glows. So it kind of masks the structure often. But they're really shaped like this, most of them.
Cigar-shaped alien crafts, right?
Correct. Yeah. You can see it has a bridge control room on the front. There's an identical one on the back, which means it's designed to move through interdimensional doorways to get across vast distances. This particular ship is a smaller one. It's a mile long. And when ships enter this, they change their molecular time rate up a little bit. It's part of the electromagnetic field. Just science, but not so much known on Earth. And they'll raise it up into slightly a parallel dimension, really, to a higher molecular time rate and move right through the metallic hull. Then lower the vibration and land inside. So there's no launch bay doors on these.
So do they enter through a wormhole into this universe or into this projection?
Yeah, you could call it a wormhole, but they're actually interdimensional doorways, and they are already designed in the physical universe that come from higher dimensions. It's other words, people all know what the astral plane is. They've heard astral plane. Well, that's the next major dimensional division of molecular time rate matter. Bodies that are made of astral matter. People live there, but they don't connect to the physical. The doorways between these interdimensional realities allow a higher energy to move through what are called concentric generators. They're like little whirls that move one time rate of energy like a transformer down to another to support another dimension. And there are natural doorways or openings throughout the universe. Advanced races have mapped these out. So they move their technology through them. You go up in a little higher molecular time rate and you're suddenly across the Milky Way galaxy. It's pretty cool.
So are they from this universe or from a parallel dimension? Or could they come from both?
Both. And the reason I say that is because what people don't know on Earth, they say that in quantum physics, there are unlimited number of parallel dimensions. But in reality, there's 144. In the physical universe, there's a barrier. There's 144 in the astral and so forth.
Who says that 144? How do we know that?
It comes from my friends that are not from Earth.
This being that is, let's say, speaking to you, and then you will...
Not exactly. I see where you're going with it. That's not exactly right. It means that when a person recovers the use of their higher faculties as a being, a spherical energy being, it has structure. It has a white core, like the sun. It has a yellow field of energy around it, then orange. It goes through the spectral colors from orange to red to green to blue to lavender to violet. It's kind of a golden field around it. That's what we really are. That's in the image of the source behind all life, not this. This is a machine that runs at 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a carbon-based structure, highly advanced DNA form that a being can run higher faculties through. People on Earth have had what you call the genomes on the DNA. Some of them they're all switches. In the past, they found that they mapped out over 1 billion genomes on the DNA. And they thought some of it was junk DNA. Scientists don't think that anymore on Earth. They know that it's important. They're just turned off. They don't know how to turn them on. They're trying to figure that out because they're switches. If you're an alien tyrant race and you want to control a slave race and you live 1,000 years or more because the DNA is turned on and you shut that down to be 80 to 100, then you can't compete with people that live at least 800. This goes back in galactic history, why people became on Earth with no memory. A person gets born here, grows up, raised by parents who don't know how they came here, and a certain shutdown genetic code is passed on generation after generation. This needs to be corrected on this planet. Because when the being gets into a body here, they push certain buttons to remember what they knew before they were born here. It doesn't work. They have problems. Things don't work.
So why can't we remember what happened? Who hijacked our memory and our consciousness?
That goes back into galactic history to a great war that happened here 500,000 years ago. That's over. There hasn't been a war here since.
Many researchers say, though, that there's an ongoing war.
I know that, but that's not, when you get out of your body, or when you get off this planet and look at things from out there, instead of just hearing what you hear from people, that's not going on. Because if it were, you and I would not be having this conversation. We'd be dead or dominated.
But what if the war is not going on here, but around Earth in our universe? It's a galactic war, they say, ongoing.
So they say. That's not my experience.
That's not what this being is saying to you. So what I was asking...
It's not that he just says things to me and I sit here. I actually go out there. I take people. I get them to get into the trance state called sleep, which you do every night when you put that body to bed, just like clockwork. So people are experts, and it's a very complex process to put the body to sleep. The pineal gland in the center of the brain has to secrete melatonin, serotonin. It has to create chemicals that make the body run on automatic when you're gone.
It's a hypnotic state, really, or is it like more like lucid dreaming?
It would be kind of like lucid dreaming. It's not a hypnotic state. The trance state the body goes into simply means it's being run on automatic from a distance while you're out. The training that I put people through, the things that I do to help people, is so they can begin to remember. They've not been trained from birth to do any of this, so why should it be familiar to them? To help them to remember how to use and turn on the higher faculties that are dormant, that allow them to know things. So imagination, when you look out, say, a window, let's say you're in a classroom and the teacher's boring, you're looking out and you're daydreaming. And you see the parking lot with your physical eyes, but you're imagining being off to the beach or in the mountains somewhere, right? It's not the brain or the eyes seeing the parking lot that's seeing that. Something else is seeing that. People on Earth don't realize this, so it's never really utilized to its full potential.
The third eye?
Well, yeah, but the third eye is really the white core of your being, and it sees in 360 degrees. It's not like a physical, and the thing that makes up what we are, that's the Atma, what beings from other worlds call Atma, we call soul, actually has a functional capability to move and know things in the multidimensional universe. It's natural, but not up for people on Earth yet, because that's been closed down, suppressed. That goes off-world into the misuse of extraterrestrial technology on people to get them to not remember. They're terrified of remembering because they think they're going to be destroyed or tortured again. It wasn't pleasant what happened to people that put them here. So people are terrified to remember it. So they need to get through a process where, number one, they understand that that kind of thing has been eliminated off-world, so that can't happen again to them. But they also have to go through the experience of remembering what happened to them safely. So it becomes nothing more than a memory and doesn't affect them subconsciously, drive them to make misdirections, right?
So this being that you're in communication with is telling you that these abductions are no longer happening and there's not an ongoing war taking place
That's
at
correct.
the moment. But what if he is feeding you disinformation?
Well, see, he doesn't feed me information in the way that you're conjecturing. I don't go and just meet with him. I meet with many beings, master teachers from other worlds. I've done it all my life. So I don't, because of it, okay, what I'm sharing with you, most important thing I can share with your audience is this. I do not work with theory. This is just me. I'm not criticizing anyone else on Earth. I don't work with debate. I don't work with speculation or theory or argument or any of that, because they're negative emotional traits, subconsciously driven, and they misdirect people. All negative emotions are artificially created. Did you know that?
But a lot of people listening to your extraordinary life story here will, of course, ask you some questions or be a little bit skeptical. So in order for them to really understand where you're coming from and what your story is, please let's talk a little bit about that. Because you've said that when you were 12 years old, you had your first experience and sighting of numerous flying discs, and that would be UFOs, of course.
Actually, that was at 3.
Pardon?
That was 3 years old.
You were 3 years old, and you remember when you were 3 years old?
My experience of that is simple. I had had something done to me like you and everyone else that put me here. So I wouldn't remember my heritage out among the stars over several billion years, really. All blocked, stuffed in a body without my permission. It was no supreme being that sent me here to do good deeds or get it right. That is not how people came to be on this planet. So at that time, I had an experience of suddenly being out of my body, seeing what this sphere is that I am, looking into the stars as a mature adult human extraterrestrial, looking at this 3-year-old body and going, I could see the star patterns in the sky. I was in Utah, walking down the street at dusk. And I had this experience fully conscious, and I was looking at the stars and I recognized where I was. And I said, Earth, what am I doing on Earth? That started a process for me. I could see geometric formulas. I knew science. I knew about extraterrestrial technology. And I knew all of it. And I said, what's this body? That experience is pretty shocking. And I kind of went into that body after that. It took me another 12 years and to start to recover more and more of what happened to me that was open to me at that time.
And you were 3 at this time.
Right.
And did you remember all of this when you were 3 and afterwards?
I did. I wisely never talked about it with my siblings, my parents. I mean, this body was born in 1950, at a time when that was at the height of the UFO thing. Classified stuff was serious business. I mean, they would kill you to keep it quiet, back then.
But how could you have a childhood and be a child if you remembered all of this?
It was not easy. My mother's 91, and when this book, the first draft, she read it, she never knew I'd gone through any of this. She's a very spiritual woman, so she started tuning into it, but she never understood that I had gone through any of this. I never talked to my
And she had never had a UFO experience herself.
No. I was in Washington State near Mount Rainier at a time when this Piper Cub pilot coined the term flying saucer and saw a whole group of them hovering around the mountain, remember? I was there at that time. So I wisely kept my mouth shut, especially at that time. No one would have listened to it, and it would have been dealt with, and probably take me off to have me psychologically analyzed or something. So I was able to work with this process all through my life with these beings. They don't channel through me. I actually talk with them. I go out of my body. We meet. We go on journeys to other realities, to other planets.
When you say meet, is that like a physical meeting where you can touch them?
When I do most of my work, I don't need the cumbersome thing of this physical form, and I don't even need a spaceship. And a normal being awake doesn't. They don't. Beings that get around in these ships like this, they know how to get out of their bodies at will. They're not ignorant of that, like people on Earth. But they use these basically to interface with beings who aren't yet that evolved to help them out. So they don't really need these ships, but they do use them. And they trade between more than 450 million spacefaring worlds in just 1/4 of our Milky Way galaxy alone. And that includes parallel dimensions. They know how to move their ships between them.
So they use it to enter the third dimension.
For instance, let's say they're in a parallel dimension, just one higher vibration above here, where there's an Earth like Lemriel, with poles never changed because there is one. And they can move between these places by lowering the molecular time rate of their craft. That's an electromagnetic field process. And come in here. So you see a ship and it just pops in and then winks out, or goes across the sky and then winks out. That's what they're doing. They're just raising the molecular time rate of their craft. So if you raise the vibration a little bit above the range of human sight and hearing, you won't see it. It won't be detectable on radar.
So what you're saying is that they are actually from Earth, but on a different timeline, or a different dimension, parallel dimension, a more evolved dimension? No?
No. People okay, I use this as an example because this is actually produced in an image people can see on a book cover, which is helpful. Because when they go out of their body at night or when they start to have experience with these guys, they need to have a grounded way of understanding what it is they're seeing, because they're not taught any of this on Earth. So these guys don't work to stimulate fear in people. They work to shut it off. So you can come out and take a look around with all that subconscious influence turned off temporarily. That's the beginning of that process.
So where are they from?
Well, for instance, this group is part of a galactic interdimensional alliance of free worlds. That's what it's called. It isn't a federation. That comes from Gene Roddenberry from Star Trek. The Federation. They don't run around in warp-driven radioactive warp cores. That's illegal outside of this planet.
From another galaxy or a star system?
Radioactive isotopes are man-made to be imbalanced, basically for bomb technology and the like. They don't allow that. It's illegal. It's destructive. You get a radioactive isotope out of its little can, kills everything. And all you do, they put all these nuclear reactors around the world to drive steam to make turbines to get electricity from something that's so deadly. If it gets out of its can, it's going to kill all life. That's kind of stupid. To do that to your own environment, to get energy. And they're just driving boiling water to make steam to drive turbines with all that technology. That's all it is. It came from the development of spent fuel cells to create bomb-grade ore. They weren't used for electricity originally in Alamogordo and so forth. They just capitalized on it. But that's not a safe way to take a planet into the future using energy like that, because ultimately it's just destructive. They don't use that kind of energy to get around the universe. They have craft that channel an energy that's in the universe, 0 point, whatever you want to call it, and then it gets them around, and they don't even have a tailpipe. Doesn't pollute anything. They don't even use energy, actually, the more advanced craft.
So where are they from, really?
Well, there's a planet called Zetranami. It's a planet, a large planet, 4 times larger than Earth, near the galactic core of the Milky Way. And that's where a 5,000 group member meets, representing more than 450 million world systems. That's actually in existence. It's a larger organization behind all the little ones you hear about online in UFO circles.
Is that what they call the Galactic Federation of Light?
No. It's called the Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds. It is not a federation of light, because light can mean anything. A light bulb. Earth light, sunlight, it's not even light from a higher dimension. So no, for my part, that's not what they call it out there. You get these terms from people mixing it up with everything else they've learned on Earth, whether it's Star Trek or anything else, and they try to put these terms together.
Or people who call themselves channelers as well.
Yeah.
Who feel that they are also truthfully in contact with beings from other dimensions or star systems.
I can't say that they aren't. But if you've noticed, the very interesting thing about what's on Earth is called divide and conquer. What do I mean by that? Simple. If you can get radio shows, I've been on Coast to Coast, I've been on John B. Wells, Art Bell before he quit the show, all this stuff, been on all these shows. And you'll notice that there's corporate sponsors to them. And I'm not criticizing this. They have to function on Earth and make money. But it means that to run the shows, they have to put an equal amount of hidden truth, say whistleblowers, on with PhD scientists that are not classified that go, we think there's life on other planets. And they put that out consistently throughout each week. So when people walk away from that after 20 years, what's happening is the people listening to all that stuff are still in one thing, doubt about everything. Doubt is backed by fear. Fear is backed by terror, and it's subconscious. So it's misdirecting. It's difficult to get 2 people in the UFO and hidden truth disclosure communities working together, because they're all talking about different things and they don't really line up, which means they're never going to be a collective group to change this planet.
And many has a different version of the truth.
Right.
But as an investigative reporter or an open-minded interviewer, you have to allow all sides and everybody
Of
speaking
course.
their truth, because how would we know who is speaking the truth or not? So in order to be open-minded and to present the possibilities to the audience, who must use their own discernment or critical thinking or ways of being open-minded to see what resonates with them.
And of course, that's true. You have to interview as much as you can to try to get to the truth, and as many ways as you can. But eventually, the thing that will get people aware with certainty, what I call knowing certainty, it's a higher faculty of being. Direct knowing perception or knowing certainty does not involve any of the negative emotions. Doubt, fear, speculation, theory won't work with that. So to get out and know things in the universe and be telepathic and recover that and really start communicating with beings elsewhere, fear cannot be involved in any way, shape, or form, because it negates it, grounds it to the earth. That's just pure physics, really. So what we want to do is at least find a way to turn off fear of the future, most importantly, in any way, and then start researching, because when you're doing that, you're going to see stuff and be aware of stuff you won't see any other way.
Letting go of fear is, of course, the most positive and important message to all of this in this field. But when you saw all of these UFOs the first time you encountered these spaceships, you said that you were in telepathic communication with the pilot. What kind of, let's say, was this pilot a human being from another world, or was he an alien being?
My first contact was with a human pilot, yes. Not from Earth. Human, yes.
So there are many human beings on other planets as well, who's not like an alien, like a gray or reptilian or Nordic or whatever.
Right, like for instance, the Pleiadians or Tyrants, whatever you've heard in that, they're humans with a little bit larger eyes than we have. Beautiful, radiant, clear, healthy. They live anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 years in a lifetime, or more if they structure their DNA, because they have mastery of DNA science. That's understanding the switches on the DNA. You want to turn it on to live 1,000 years and turn on things to not get disease, it can be done. They're starting to work with that on Earth. So that's a good thing. But and when you're working with extraterrestrials from other worlds, it's good to know first, I think, that there are fellow humans out there, because if you get contacted by a little gray being misdirected by a reptilian, you're going to have problems. What I need to share with people, and they're going to find this out anyway, is that the reptilians that used to be in bases underground have been sent home, not by people on Earth, number one. There are no more little gray abductions. They're talking about 20 years ago now, still circulating that. Doesn't happen anymore. So there have been constructive changes already that people in the UFO communities and on the internet don't quite know about yet. They don't understand that some things in a constructive, positive way have already headed toward disclosure.
Most conspiracy and truth researchers are saying that the reptilian race are the ones who possibly were here on Earth first, and has been hijacking the whole, well, government system, actually working with the government, top elite factions of the government as well. And they all say that the reptilians are the malevolent ones. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they were.
But why are they not anymore?
Here, they were. Let's just say that they were subconsciously misdirected, programmed long ago in galactic history by a more violent race. They weren't originally tyrants, but they became that way and started a war here. And that war, they were defeated in a war, and then a treaty was struck. That treaty, if you know anything about tyrants, they'll sign a treaty just like Hitler did and break it every way they can, just short of going to war. Find someone out in some obscure planet on a vacation and abduct them, just out of revenge. Suppress them, kill their body, implant them, put a field of energy around the atma, which cannot be destroyed, through which they see the universe, and then it misdirects them, stick them in a body on Earth. You have no memory. Most people really are terrified of getting out of their body. Until they die, they figure they're going to go to heaven, or they'll wait till someone tells them the truth later on. But the fact of it is, they're afraid of doing it because they think some demon or something will get them. What I point out to people is, don't worry about getting out of your body as the atma. It can't be harmed. It's not made of matter. It's not nuclear. But You're already been got. You're on Earth, thinking you're a body with no memory. You can't get caught more than that. Everything from here is up from there. And that's a good thing, meaning that people need to recover what they once knew before they were born here. And they need to do it while they're alive here, if they can.
But you're saying that the reptilian race is not working with our governments or the deep state military factions of the government anymore. But look at what is going on in the world. It's not exactly a very jolly and happy place. So when did that suddenly change, and why didn't Earth become a much more beautiful and wonderful place to live on?
One single factor. The programming that was done to you and everyone else, including me, was done before you were born here. And people still suffer from it. It's not that they're here still. Let me put it this way. Back in 1947, Truman established the National Security Act in this country to begin this whole process of covering up things with the Soviet Union and their struggle and all that. Both countries took advanced scientists, Nazi SS officers, into their countries who were working with extraterrestrial technology that was given to them illegally. They weren't smarter scientists. And we brought those people and pardoned them into our countries. And these little gray guys came along with them. How could the CIA, that was formed at the same time the National Security Act was 3 weeks after Roswell, have ever perceived what was being done to them? People they met with on a tarmac, both good, benevolent races, and tyrant, under treaty, scared the heck out of Eisenhower, for one. Even the good guys scared him because they were so advanced. They gave him an offer at that time. It was 1950 something. They gave him an offer.
53, was it?
Yeah, they gave him an offer to straighten out this planet, share their technology if we give up nuclear and radioactive materials because it's illegal off-world. And they refused.
So you believe that President Eisenhower really did meet with extraterrestrial beings?
Sure he did. Absolutely.
What is the best evidence that we have to support that claim?
Well, I'll give you one thing that's very interesting, because you're not going to have evidence until it's declassified. You're just not going to find it. And I don't care who you are on what show. Everybody knows you're not going to find it that way. You can get the information and be aware of it, enlightened, out of body, and meet with people from other worlds where the rest of the world doesn't even know it's happening yet. And no, try to convince your fellow people of that who have no experience with it. You're going to have some trouble. You got to have a way to help people have experience. So that's what my work's about. Direct experience removes doubt and fear. Anything short of that won't work. This is just kind of common sense. So Eisenhower did. The treaty we got all this technology from, we're enjoying, even this ability to be on Zoom right now, microwave, thin wafer, silica-based technology and all that, started with the Roswell crash because it had fiber optics woven around the hull. Carbon fiber metallurgy and all that kind of thing started there. It wasn't the only down craft. Some were given to us. So the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology began a long time ago. And since everything's been classified, meaning the highest level of classification is not about the hydrogen bomb. It's about the knowledge of extraterrestrial life. Even in history, if you find 20-foot tall skeletons that are human that are 5 million years old, they found, it becomes classified right away because it's about extraterrestrials.
And it will change history.
Right. And many other things, even religious beliefs for some. And a lot of people are threatened about this. It's understandable. I can understand it. I live on this planet too, part-time. So yeah, I mean, it's like, so Eisenhower had a difficult choice. He was a good man. He did not make a treaty with bad guys deliberately. The ambassador he met with carried a little device on his belt, and it implants subconscious drives in a person without them knowing. It means that it doesn't change the personality or the sense of humor. It just manipulates their decision-making. Thus, keep everything disclosed, way past the point at which it's reasonable. In the original bylaws of the National Security Act, part of it was to disclose fully to the world what they knew when they felt people wouldn't riot. Today, it's not the people that would riot. It's the people in a hidden government and classified system that are more scared about what will happen to them should it be disclosed. What we're working on is about disclosure without destruction, without this rioting in the street nonsense. No one from other world would do that, except tyrants.
Do you think we will ever have disclosure?
Yes. And not because people on Earth would do it of free will, because they don't have free will. The classified people, when I talk to you, I'm talking to them. I have never threatened or put out any information about threatening who's in power. Royal families, no, because they're all misdirected too. It has to be for everyone on this planet, for this planet to take its place among the stars. And this planet is ready to do that. The technology to do it would be given to us at no charge if we were trustworthy enough to be allowed to go out there. So our solar system, this is highly classified, our entire solar system and our planet Earth is quarantined. What does that mean? It means people are taking these rocket ships with, explosive gases like controlled explosions, trying to take them out in space and get where? NASA already knows you cannot take an astronaut to Mars and back over 4 years. They probably wouldn't survive because in zero gravity, bodies atrophy. They know that from putting an American, Soviet, Russian astronaut on the space station for a year. Their bodies atrophy.
Because they can't go through the Van Allen belt?
No, because zero gravity, weightlessness, you start losing bone mass and other things. So they're going to have to disclose or use artificial gravity in order to go in tin cans to other planets. And it's still going to take years. It's not practical.
So you're saying that we have not been in space, human beings then?
I did not say that. We have. But in rocket ships. And there are reverse engineered ships that are anti-gravitic that we have that can go in our solar system, but they're not allowed to go outside of it. And they don't know why. They just can't do it. Because there are races who don't want us taking our garbage out there and throwing it on them. Would you want a race of 7 billion people who don't know who they are, who are in fear, and that means the military-industrial complex too, and take it out there with your weapons and then project your arrogance and your misdirection out there and misinterpret things and fire on people and take all that crap out there? If you were advanced races who come here easily, would you want us out there like we are? Yes or no?
We're not very evolved on this planet, are we?
Well, we're not awake to what we are capable of.
But if we are controlled, that some people say, some alternative researchers say, that you're denying by, let's say, hijacked by these reptilian beings because they want to control the Earth and they work with hierarchies, then maybe that would explain something about what's going on and why.
No, they're not wrong.
Kept.
See, I'm not in conflict with those people. I'm not in debate with those people. I don't collaborate with them.
But that doesn't mean they don't exist and it's not true.
No, what I'm saying is they're correct. They were hijacked. That's not wrong. It's just that the hijacking process is not still going on today. They're left with the effect of it. That's dangerous.
So they just went away?
No, they didn't just go away. They were removed.
By whom?
By beings from other worlds who have a concerned interest. For the first time, and about 8 years ago, Earth time, something happened out in the universe and in the higher realities that never happened before, that changed their consciousness to get motivated because they recognize for the first time, even as benevolent as they are, you can't just hide your head in the sand and ignore people on Earth, because that will come back to bite you in galactic history, because everything is connected. In the basic law of physics, every action creates an equal but opposite reaction. This means emotions and thoughts affect the universe and the energy around us in the same way. So what we put out by physical law must come back to us. That means people on Earth who are running a planet misdirecting everyday decision-making about governments not getting along and all this stuff are suffering from the effect of subconscious implant programming they don't even know they have.
Law of attraction you're talking about, really.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, here's the secret as far as getting this straightened out. The imagination is not made up in the brain, first of all. People aren't taught that on Earth. It is part of a function of the spherical nature of our being that runs physical bodies. We have never been ever a physical body, but people believe this in their subconscious misdirected state on Earth. We actually never have been anything but this spherical structure. And that is what's made in the image of the source, not this, not gray, not reptilian, not mantis, not humans from other worlds. Those are genetic forms developed through higher science so that a being could run higher faculties through the nervous system under the right conditions and gain experience in matter. That's really the history behind it. So when you're looking at things like recovering awareness and using the creative imagination, when we do this, if you put out two currents at the same time, fear of the future, Armageddon, the end of the world, the bad guys, the men in black, and you promote that, and you're putting out, I want a good living and happiness for my wife and kids and family at the same time, it splits the use of the imagination into two opposing forces, purely physics, and they ground each other into the earth so people stay unconscious here. So when a person becomes aware to withdraw their energy from that false system, that karmic nonsense, they start to put the energy of the imagination out properly into the universe to connect with beings who know this, and then they start progressing very rapidly. This has been my experience, and this is what I share with others, and they're finding that out.
So it is a process of evolvement. We have to evolve gradually. Is that what you're saying?
We have to remember what was taken from us first and then evolve greater. So, for instance, if you're put on Earth and you can't remember anything you ever lived in other lives or that you even had other lives, and you're programmed by political and or politically driven religious programming, because that's the history of our planet, and then you want to find out hidden truth, how are you going to do that? Operating in any way from fear. Fear is a negative stream, grounds things to matter, because it's positive and negative streams in the matter planes are forces that are supposed to work like this, in harmony, with another energy moving through them. And people on Earth have them split, running in both ways at the same time. And then they put out every day both streams without realizing it. And it just kind of keeps them here. Because this omnipresent living force, the thing we call dark matter in space, is not dark matter. People on Earth, scientists, know it's not dark at all. Physical eyes can't see into a high enough frequency, so it appears black. But in reality, that dark matter is a bright white light. Talk about a white light. In between suns and planets and moons, you get out as an atma, and you can see it for what it really is. They know that that space between all things floating in it, galaxies, is vibrant energy. In the CERN Super Collider, the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland, they call it the God particle because they don't know what to do with it. They know it's behind everything and it doesn't operate like a law of physics should. So they're making headway. They're starting to discover things about this energy that other beings utilize to get around the universe. You can call it zero-point energy if you want to. And it vibrates on many levels.
Supposedly, they say that in CERN, they actually were able, through the Hadron Collider, to open a portal to allow dark beings, some call them archons, Christians call them demons, or Muslims call them jinn, to enter into this dimension. And they even have a big statue of a dancing Shiva, which is in a way symbolic, a bit related to the rings of Saturn. Did that actually happen? Have they done that or not?
Let me put it this way. There's no need for a little tiny particle they create of antimatter or in the CERN Large Hadron Collider, or to see other energies behind molecular matter, which is what they've done. But they don't really need to open a door with that thing to let such beings in. They can get in and out all around the universe anyway without the Large Hadron Collider to do it. So I would say no. I don't follow that. I'm not putting anyone down, but it's not my experience that it's doing that.
So what are they using it for, really? Which is not the official story.
They're using it to find out what dark matter really is.
And that's the official story.
Sort of. They're trying to find how everything works through whatever they have. these super magnetic coils that are running these particles down, bashing into each other, isn't really the right way to go about finding out truth.
And don't they know that already? Don't you think that science is evolved in a way that we are certainly not being told through the mainstream media?
No, you're not yet. Now, there's a couple of things you might say that are part of official disclosure. There was a Project Blue Book TV series that was on recently about Jay Hynek's life. Pretty revealing. Some of it made up, but basically it follows what was in his diaries and what he wrote about, that he was classified not to tell people. That's important. That would not be on TV if it wasn't sanctioned, number one. Then there was a woman who was a ex-Navy person going around in a documentary film thing investigating Bob Lazar and Area 51 and all that. That has also been sanctioned because the Navy Department allowed them to release information about the documented tracking of a UFO that was playing with Air Force jets, disappearing up at high altitude and going very low and coming back and circling them. Not destructive, no one was harmed. That's official disclosure underway, partially.
What are your thoughts on the Bob Lazar story then?
Well, it's just people eventually, what's going on with part of that is to basically validate what he went through.
And he went through exactly what he's been telling us.
Sure. What's the big deal about working at Area 51 and reverse engineering anti-gravity? Duh, yeah, of course. He was just one of many that aren't even talking about it yet that work on that stuff. So he also was sponsored by an older, I think he's German, scientist that worked at Alamogordo that liked him and kind of looked after him. So when he broke that story, he was breaking classified agreements. And he was asked to come back in to the classified community. He was never killed or harmed. I mean, to me, he's still classified on some levels because he doesn't talk about everything he knows. And he does talk about stuff that he can talk about. So in a way, he came back into that arena for his part. But what he said was allowed to go forward. And he did it at a time before they meant it to come out. So basically, he's one of those that were still protected to go through this process.
Linda Moulton Howe has been talking about it since 1979, though. She's also been very public about this, the whole UFO phenomenon, the alien presence on planet Earth.
Sure, I've met her.
What are your thoughts on the very extensive work that she's been doing for so many years?
She's an investigative journalist, basically. She's been on Coast to Coast and other shows a lot, and she has some experience, but she's not really experienced with extraterrestrials. She interviews people that are. Dr. Michael Salla does the same. I mean, he interviews all kinds of people and write books about whistleblowers and things like that. And that gets some information out. That's all good.
There is unfortunately a lot of ongoing racism on this planet simply because of different creed or color, people disliking each other because of the body vehicle that they inhabit this time around, and forgetting, of course, the soul entity that they have within, that is within each individual. Do you think that racism also exists in the universe as well in regards to these countless different alien, interdimensional, and extraterrestrial species and races?
Not like on Earth.
No?
No, because if you're, put it this way, that doesn't mean that they are uncomfortable if you're a human and you're next to some 10-foot tall reptilian with a retractable claws who's smiling at you just as soon have you for dinner, that kind of thing. You're going to be uncomfortable with, but you grow up on those worlds knowing about these other races, interacting with them, trading with them, developing science together with them. The Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds that all these other little organizations belong to, that people have whistleblowers have brought out. It's much bigger than what's been disclosed so far. They grow up on those worlds trading with almost 500 million spacefaring planets. That's a small number in our galaxy. That's a little less than half of one side of the galaxy. There's another race of beings that I'm in touch with that actually have jurisdiction over the other half, and they're kind. They've never even been in any war. Think about this. People on Earth have no idea this is going on outside their planet. No idea. And if they did, and we were interacting with them, the attitudes of everything people have on Earth today would change virtually overnight.
So who are the malevolent races and who are the benevolent ones, in your opinion?
Okay. There are a few spacefaring malevolent races out there that were out operating in the universe and breaking an off-world treaty, manipulating selected elite people on this planet. That was policed. If it hadn't been, they would have succeeded in getting us, or they would have had Hitler wipe out 3/4 of the population of this planet, because 500 million are easily to dominate, easier than 7 billion who can't be controlled.
But they brought a Nazi scientist to the US.
If nuclear war had not been prevented on this planet from off-world, very highly classified, you know about this, launch computers being shut down from space, craft that don't even talk to anybody and just fly away and say, do whatever you want. We don't want to run your governments, but we're not going to tolerate that. And they won't. Because nuclear war would affect energy through portals to parallel dimensions and harm hundreds of billions of people and animals and beings people on Earth don't know exist yet. That's not going to be allowed.
But maybe these races wanted the Earth for themselves and didn't want to the human race to destroy it.
Well, if they want to keep a people working as unconscious, like a slave race, pulling resources out of the ground and shipping them off-world in a classified program, a separate space program, to get antiquated extraterrestrial technology, you can see where the thinking of the original founders of the CIA were at the time. They thought it was a good idea, but shortly after they made a treaty with a tyrant race to get this technology who didn't care if we gave up nuclear weapons, they regretted it because they knew they were lied to. And they've been trying ever since to get them out of bases and get this changed. This is what they've been doing with reversing technology, to try to get away from those guys. And they've had help, and it's been a slow, painful process that is now rapidly increasing. And with this closing down, this stopping nuclear war on this planet was not done by any of the leaders on this planet who actually pushed the button, being misdirected as they were. It was stopped from off-world, and that's more highly classified than any other extraterrestrial issue. Because it means you tell the people that we've got things going on out there we can't control. Our militaries can't protect you. And yet those forces that did that have never threatened anybody on this planet. Not once.
So back to who were the malevolent ones and who are the benevolent ones, not only on Earth or around Earth, but also in the universe.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the physical universe and physical laws, physical matter. And we mentioned the astral plane, which works with a little different molecular time rate matter, a different way, a little higher level frequency, causal, mental, etheric. You've got this void up there that some esoteric groups on Earth call, the void, like Buddhists, they think that's nothing beyond it. But that's not true. There's a lot beyond it. And the energies are transmuted down through these planes to support all the different levels, even the parallel dimensions in the physical universe, planets, galaxies spinning on their axis and all that. All that matter floats in another kind of energy. Tyrant races like Reptilian or Greys or some tall whites or royal family bloodline races and all that have existed out there and were originally not bad. They became that way through galactic history over time. And there have been policing actions out there regulating them ever since. Now what's going on is they are back in their world systems going through a change for the first time. They aren't allowed to come here and mess with people anymore. You can't free a people on a planet that's subjugated. You can't free a people on a planet that flips its poles every 100,000 years like clockwork, like this one has been, until that's changed. So what I'm sharing with you is the things that are going on out there have actually permanently ceased the polar flips of this planet. There's not going to be another golden age to iron age here. That's over. So when I tell you I don't work with fear about the future, I really mean it. I don't. I'm not afraid about the future for this world at all. So the tyrant races are there, going through a change. They are not allowed to come back here, and we have a quarantine system around our solar system. This is a fact.
So what would you call this New World Order Illuminati power structure that we're seeing on the planet today if it's not part of an alien agenda, only human?
Well, it was. It was.
But what about today?
In fact, it's even revealed in this book.
But what about today? It's not like it's a better place than what we talked
Today,
about
you've got a bunch
before.
of people who realized they were making a lot of mistakes in judgment behind the scenes, denying people awareness of life from other worlds. Was justified because they felt people would riot. It was just to support their own elite status. And they were being manipulated with the misuse of extraterrestrial technology. You don't, look, it's not like people see in films. Tyrant races don't come here in massive 100,000 ships and wipe out the earth. That's not actually how they work. They actually send a few representatives here using technology they've stolen and misused, get control of a few elite to control the elected leaders, and then get them to control the masses through radio and TV and wherever they do. So you really don't, they just want to keep the status quo like it is, because in a classified space program that ran parallel to NASA, that involved other countries, resources have been being shipped off Earth. We've even made devices for their ships that have a base inside the other side of Area 51, and allowed them to have a hangar to fix their ships, but they wouldn't allow our own scientists and generals in the hangar because they're drooling over getting old extraterrestrial technology in exchange, and they're not being treated fairly. They're really not being given their more advanced stuff. And that's a problem, because that's misdirection.
And who does not allow that? Is that the government or the elite? What?
Well, right now, it's because people in those groups are very afraid of disclosure. They know they have to do it. They see the writing on the wall out in space. They go out there and they realize there's guys in ships out there hanging out in our solar system they can't affect with any other weaponry at all. And they're not being attacked or threatened by them. They're just there. One of them's stationed in the ice rings of Saturn. That's ice that surrounds the planet Saturn. And it's permanently there for now.
So is Saturn projecting like an energy field that keeps us in in a captive state, that we're captured, that there's this grid around Earth because the rings are projecting some kind of beam?
That's not the energy that's coming from them. It isn't about suppression or control.
A former NASA scientist said that, actually, Norman Bergrun.
This ship here and the beings that work it, there's actually, you're going to find this out anyway, but there is a giant four-sided golden pyramid floating between two big asteroids in the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter right now.
Really?
Yes. I think Corey Good even made mention of it from his people on a show, radio show. I heard wind of it, but that's not the point. I don't get that information from him. That is sitting there doing something, and they're being stationed between stars in our galaxy. Something that's never been done before, so that it can regulate certain things to help people recover and get rid of fear in a process that's non-destructive. It's not about suppression. It's about undoing subconscious misdirection.
But don't you have to face fear in order to get rid of it, to understand it, to put the spotlight on it? Here's
an example that your listeners might relate to. Let's say, for sake of argument, once upon a time, you were out in the universe, happy-go-lucky. You're an extraterrestrial human. You've lived 2,000 years. You get caught by a reptilian, I don't know, 50,000 years ago, and they kill you and put you in a field of energy and stick a bunch of holographic crap around you as a being because they can't harm the Atma. And then you start looking through that stuff. You lost a body through terror. And then they stick you in a body on Earth as a political prisoner that no one will ever find. You have a certain energy signature that radiates out from you as an individual. We all do. And if that's masked, your friends from out of town, from off-world, cannot detect you. That's been uncovered. So that means what I'm sharing with you is beings from other worlds, when you begin to make contact with them while you're alive, they begin to help undo this masking of your energy. They're becoming aware of who some of their fellow beings are that disappeared. You know where they ended up? Earth. Now, if you're kind people on another world and you discover where some of these people were put and how over a long period of time, you have a responsibility, I would do this, to try to rescue or elevate those people to remember who they are, because what is the potential of human life on planet Earth? If 7 billion people know how to leave their bodies at night by putting their body to sleep, and you recover that potential creatively, what contribution will that be to the rest of the universe? Some of the most advanced beings that ever lived in the universe today, some of them, are on Earth with no memory. What happens if you wake that up?
So is reincarnation an archon created soul harvesting karma wheel trap in order to keep the human souls captured within the matrix, this grid supposedly placed around Earth? Why is this recycling process happening all the time, where our souls are being put back into a new body with a wiped memory, not being able to remember anything and being what you call more or less unconscious?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes to all of it. Yes. So the great white light that people talk about, that near-death experiencers have talked about, going into this tunnel of light, seeing a projection, a live review, and then seeing relatives looking their best and being asked, what have you done with your life, and go back to into a new body and a wiped memory. Why is this happening? Is this because these archons are feeding on human being souls, like we need food and water, and they're feeding on anxiety, anger, hate?
They're misdirected themselves. This whole negative thing didn't start in the physical universe. This may be hard to grasp, but I might as well tell the truth to people here. That's why I'm on this planet. That's why I came here. Beyond being caught and put here, recovering all for that which I've uncovered, that I was never, to beings that are tyrants, they never thought I could do it. Did it anyway. Because the Atma really has command over any form of negativity. It's just been made to forget that, so that it will willingly put its imagination in negative streams so it can be manipulated.
But in order not to make that mistake again when we leave the body at the point of death, going into the tunnel of light, if it's very magnetic, and this is what all the religions are teaching us, heaven or nirvana or whatever it is, also in part of the New Age, talk about the white light and all of that. It's the end goal for all of these religious beliefs. If you're not supposed to go into the white light, if it is an orchestrated illusion or a trap by these archons, demons, what have you, what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to turn? How do we get out of that matrix, out of the grid, and go to where? Source?
Simple, yes. Simple. Awareness. When you become aware of what truth really is and what's been done, and stop hiding like an ostrich in the sand, and even on Earth, I mean, if you really start recovering what the truth is that you're denied, and you wake it up within your own being, and you get assistance to do it with the right people, then you're going to start to know all this stuff for yourself with certainty. Doubt and fear drop away, because you know. Knowing is a natural state of what you really are that isn't a physical body. But that's been tampered with, hasn't it? We all know that, seriously. Karma is an illusion. You go out of your body, you meet friends and relatives, and they are misdirected on the other dimensions. This thing of evil with reptilians didn't start in the physical universe. It started by tyrants who run the other dimensions people worship as the supreme being, and they aren't. That too is being undone in a way as we speak, or we couldn't have this conversation we're having right now. It would have been suppressed before we ever got on. When my work, satellites are not interfered with worldwide. When I get on your show, we're not going to have any interruption. And you say, well, wait a minute, don't the military-industrial complex control the satellites? Well, yes, they do, but not always.
Some people do experience being shut down, and YouTube is heavily...
Fear is a frequency, an oscillating frequency, a carrier wave. Satellites and all that are running that through them. If you put it out unknowingly and connect with it, you get manipulated in a negative way because you're co-creating, supporting it. This is the trap that people are in right now on this planet. Why am I being allowed to share this with you now without interference? That's the important thing I want to bring to your attention. So the problem doesn't just exist in the physical universe to get rid of what you call the experiment of evil, because it's an experiment that failed.
It's been pretty successful, if you could call it successful, huh?
Yeah, it's been too successful, yeah, in keeping beings stuck thinking their bodies in lower dimensions reincarnating. That was not the original idea, but it's what came out of that experiment. So in order to replace the experiment of evil like the dinosaur, you have to have something brought into creation that actually works to take its place. That's where my work comes into this.
Where did these archons come from? And how can we get rid of them?
Okay, the first thing to know about being free from the influence of negative beings. It's important that people understand and recover how to work with an omnipresent field of energy that exists beyond Earth, between worlds, between galaxies, and through the dimensions that is not made of nuclear material. What makes up the energy of the Atma is not made of nuclear material. The white core of our being is made of exactly the same energy as what the source is, prime creator, supreme being, whatever people think that is. And that source, when you go to it and return to it, which is what we're supposed to be doing, never requested or insisted or encouraged us to worship it ever. Only tyrants propping themselves up at that in the lower dimensions have done that. We have the ability to connect right into that source energy, right out in the plasma between stars, and it will connect right to that source without the interference of matter things, weapons, people, psychic-tronic devices, whatever.
So without being hijacked at the point of death, we can choose not to go into the light, but be strong enough to go to source and be one with source?
Except not the negative light.
But how do you know if it's the negative light?
Experience and direct experience and direct experience.
But most people on Earth do not have the experience that you're
That's
talking
right.
about.
So what I do,
how can they choose?
Okay, I will share this with you if you're willing.
Bring it on.
The first word, this is how diabolical it is. This is going to be shocking for people, but it's true. The first half of the word human, human, is HU. It is a sound frequency that human beings can sing with vocal cords or just imagine that will connect to that plasma, that omnipresent field of energy. It was set up in the beginning that way. So let's say you're having a day and you're feeling demons around, you're getting all negative and your nervous system's getting all weird. You feel like the government's working with your internet and trying to mess with you and stuff like that. I go into this an outflow. It is a type of energy that connects to a pure, it's telepathic to a pure source of energy that bypasses all the crap in history, including negativity. And it begins to put out a field of energy through you that widens your field of energy outward and outflows for the uplifting benefit of all life. It's an outflow. It's an energy that flows through you that does not allow negative things to even approach you. The only way people will find this out is by their own experience, because otherwise they're just words.
So it's Hugh as an H-U?
Correct. Like the name H-U-G-H, Hugh, long and drawn out. Okay, it is not owned. I don't care what any organization may tell people here. The first half of the word human is not owned, possessed, copyrighted, patented, or controlled by any organization, philosophical, religious, or governmental on this planet, and it cannot be. It is not made of matter. It is not from this earth. It is not from the Milky Way galaxy. It's from way beyond that. And that's what people begin to connect into. And what happens is when they begin that process, the fear, the terror, the unconsciousness begins to drop away from them in their practical lives. In other words, a person's life on this terribly negatively misdirected planet for now begins to walk through it unscathed by all that. and they recover more. And that benefits everyone else. It's like the story of the 100th monkey. You know what that is? You ever heard it? There's these two islands off Japan, and there are monkeys on them. They don't relate. They can't get across the islands to each other. And people would feed them crates of fruit, and to feed them. And the monkeys would always get in the sand near the ocean, and the monkeys would eat around the sand. One day, one of these pieces of fruit rolls into the water and gets washed off. The monkey looks at that and he eats the whole thing. And from that day forward, they started washing their fruit. The phenomenon is that the monkeys on the other island they had no connection to started doing the same thing. They were connected, like we are, to beings not from this world, as the Atma, as the real source. When that happens, the whole process of unconsciousness, people have been in misdirected and reincarnation, getting guides to tell them to go back to Earth and say, Johnny, glad you died. Now you want to go back to Earth, and we're going to wipe your memories so you won't have to worry about how you died or anything, and then you can go back and try to get it right again. And off they go into another body with no memory. So if you want to avoid meeting such beings, when you translate and this body ceases, you go into the hue because it bypasses that. The only way anyone's going to find that out is to recover it while they're still alive, hopefully really know it. So at the moment of departing from the body, they already know where they're going to go. Fear of death is gone. Fear of the future, absent. For many beings in other worlds, that's just normal. Wow. Really? Wow.
So you can choose to go to Source when you die, or anywhere else? And where could that be?
Well, what governs where you go is what your imagination is when you pass away. If it's fear of death and fear of the future, you're going to draw and be drawn to similar things. If you understand fear is artificial and you don't give it energy anymore, you don't go into that experience. You don't meet those kind of people. You could call it spiritual higher law. The law in the upper worlds is love and do as you will. There's one law that supersedes that now, and that is a new ray of consciousness that's moving through the hue that is the omnipresent field of energy through all creation, supporting it all, that supports good and bad and everything. Its source, that source is not good and bad. It just supports what people do, good or bad. There's a new ray running through it now that didn't exist out in the universe, that changed extraterrestrials recently to be more involved in actually helping change this planet. Because if they didn't get involved here, this planet, we'd all be dead already. Because they already tried to have nuclear war here a number of times. 12. Shut down every time.
But what if you end up having, well, dementia or suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever? How can you remember when you die? Are you then full consciousness and then you will remember what you...
Yeah, you're talking about a physical body on Earth now having a chemical problem or an imbalance, or brain cells dying or something like this, or there's some kind of aluminum in there screwing up the circuitry or whatever. The being is not the body. So if a body has dementia or particularly Alzheimer's is the death of the astral body on a plane where it might live for 10,000 years in a different molecular state. All emotion that you experience on Earth comes from a life you're running on that plane. The spherical being is running more than just this body at this time. Your emotions come from there and are transmitted down to you. The mind, the real genius, is not the brain you grew up with. It's the mind, the body you're running on the mental plane, 4 planes up from here. And you're running a life there. People don't remember any of this. Your so-called higher selves, they say, are helping them. I don't see any evidence on Earth that most people's higher selves are helping them because they're too selfishly living out. They don't care about you down here. They have to be awoken too in order to interact and help people here properly. And misdirection won't work that way. So emotions come from another reality where you are responsibly running a body in another reality. Why? To learn the one purpose for existing, for all atmas, for all souls, is to one day become a trustworthy co-creator with the source, not a co-slave, a co-worshiper of it, not under its tyrant control as the supreme being, a co-creator. Why? Because we are comprised of the same energy as it. identical in every way. And when we wake that up, we start to be able to co-create with that in ways you can't imagine, even while you're living on Earth.
So you will remember everything when you die, even if you had been suffering from Alzheimer's?
No, not if you go out there with a lot of fear and doubt and negativity. You won't remember anything.
But people won't remember that when they get Alzheimer's.
So if someone's getting Alzheimer's, the being that's running that body can no longer work the mental or emotional bodies through it. They're blocked because one of the bodies above here has passed away.
Will you then be hijacked by these archons and go into the white light again to be recycled?
Just let's say you have a relative that's having Alzheimer's, even a parent or something that's having a problem. They can't, of their own free will on Earth, make a decision about solving any of that. But you can send the hue, knowing what this new ray is, to them. It's the highest form of prayer. But you don't manipulate this energy to tell it what to do with them. It knows how to do it, what to do with them. But you have the right to channel it, send it there, and it will benefit them and help them meet with different kinds of people when they leave that body than they would have.
And people, by people you mean beings?
Correct.
And then you would have to be very conscious about doing that so that you don't manipulate it, even to try and do it in a good way to influence the frequency.
Because if you do that, that's black magic. If you pray for someone and try to heal them in what you think is righteously right for them, without their permission, that's interference. No being that's conscious in the universe will do that. They will get the cooperation of that being. If you send this you towards a loved one, on another level, they'll get it as the Atma. And some being will approach them and help them see the difference, unthreatening, fully elevated, like in an uplifted state, when they don't have the problem of the block in their body affecting them. That person can make correct decisions from there. Does that make sense?
Non-ego based, certainly.
Yeah, if you're going to send out the hue for the well-being of others, don't tell the hue what to do with itself. It's bigger than we are. We're the same thing as it, but we're like a drop of this pure energy, individualized, out of the entire ocean of it.
How do you work with the hue? How do you discover that? What's the process of doing that? Is that to say that sound that you did before?
So when I do these little radio shows with Gail or Perry and the little ones we're doing that people are finding out about around the world, I will actually take people through the process of getting their body to go in the trance state called sleep. They put it in every night anyway, except the Atma through this process stays alert. And then we go on journeys to recover what they've been suppressed in them without fear going with them. It's left on off with the body.
It sounds a little bit similar to what you see, you will probably disagree with me, but what you've seen with these stage hypnotists, these let's say these popular mind control people. I'm not talking about, you know, the covert mind control MK Ultra, but those stage hypnotists.
Hypnotism is a psychic function. It's the influence of implants or subconscious direct negative programming in people. It's just playing with that. Turning it on or focus already on them. It's like these guys don't create it. They don't have any power. They just know how to affect emotion. And emotion governs what you see imaginatively. That's all that is. We don't work, anybody I know in the universe doesn't work with hypnotism at all. There are reverse hypnosis regression therapists that get lucky sometimes if they've been abducted themselves and have experience to help people recover memories that were suppressed, maybe by little grays, Betty and Barney Hill story, for example. Yes, and that helped them because the subconscious suppressed memory will destroy their physical nervous system, ruin their lives until they're free of it. It just becomes a memory. And then they recover. They recover back to what they were before this was done to them, but they don't really get liberated overall from that. It just gets them free of the negative implant stuff that was done to them through the misuse of science to get genetic samples of whatever they were doing at the time.
Do you think that you were ever abducted, really, and had implanted memories?
No. I was captured coming to this planet more than 60 years ago to begin a process with the leaders of this world. And others have come here. My ship was intercepted en route to this planet.
You were on a ship as a soul being or
as an ambassador, yes. And I've been here ever since. Now that process of why I came here is beginning to be carried out. And 60 years later doesn't matter. The point is I'm awake now and it's en route. So it's like, okay, look, you didn't originate on this planet. You may not know this yet, but I think in the back of your conscience, you know you're much older and wiser than, you can quite get your fingers on. It's just out of reach kind of thing all the time.
Where do you think we came from?
Well, I can tell you that you did not originate on this planet as a human being. I can tell you that no human being ever evolved on this planet. I can tell you that there's no missing link that will ever be found linking Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, which are extinct humanoid species we were never part of. We aren't linked to them. There is no provable, verifiable evidence that any link will ever be found proving that, because there isn't one, because it doesn't exist on Earth. Human beings in this form evolved several billion years ago out in the galaxies and were brought here.
We didn't evolve from the monkeys?
No, we did not.
Well, you do say that none of the no human being was actually is actually from planet Earth.
Kind of makes us all extraterrestrials, doesn't it?
It really does. And you say that we come from different star systems, but you also talk about, and that was actually maybe a little bit connected to what I asked you about, not racism, but races in general. You say that the different races on planet Earth come from different star systems. So we're not really from the same kind of planet, or what? Please talk about that.
No. Yeah. African American, Native American, Eskimo, Aboriginal, South American, Indian tribes, Caucasian, Semitic, Asian, all came from star systems where whole planetary systems were full of that type of human being.
So that was an Asian planet or an African planet.
Correct.
Well, you said
That's
African
correct.
American, but it's originally
Well, that's
from
just
Africa.
because that's the term people are used to here. I don't call them black or white people.
African originally, huh?
Yeah, but they didn't originate in Africa. There's no Garden of Eden that was on this planet, so to speak. It was out there.
Isn't that just a metaphor? Symbolic?
In a way, sure it is, because it's a storybook and books on Earth that talk about a word. The word is a sound. The word was not a written word in any book. It is the first frequency that was sent out to create the lower dimensions of time and space. And here's the kicker. Each one of us is an atma, comprised of this original source energy, came into existence before time and space was made. So how old are you, really? That's what can be woken up. How old are we?
How old are we? Where do you think you come from? You are a Caucasian, I expect, or do you have other...
Probably English and German and Czechoslovakian and who knows what all, American Indian, blend of everything, doesn't matter. That's just genetic form. This is not the original body I came here in. That was destroyed. Not an easy thing to remember or confront, I can tell you. But it made it possible for me to confront what was done and go back down the time track in galactic history, go into the other dimensions and realities with friends and guides who I could trust, and really see the true picture of just how much people were suppressed, not just implants from reptilians, into the other worlds, the higher dimensions as well, where this whole karma thing started. And it took me back to where I could go back to the source itself, revisit that, communicate with that, and find out it isn't even a tyrant and really had no interest in beings and bodies in the lower universe until fairly recently. In which case, the energy that's inside us and the energy at the source is changing for the first time in a new way.
But our DNA is changing over time, all the time. But reptile energy, I'm also talking about earthly reptiles. But what they say about reptilians as well, the alien species, their DNA doesn't change over time, which is the reason, they say, supposedly, is why they feel that they are superior, that they're a superior race, entitled.
They feel they're superior because they are terrorized more deeply than you are, subconsciously.
In what way?
Well, in a way that they have an emperor, they have someone who runs a secret police and make the Nazi SS look like child's play. Beings grow up on those worlds absolutely obeying those source people, police and all that. They grow up in a soldier in a reptilian army or space fleet would be so terrified of their commander, they're basically running on fear. And so's the commander. They suppress other races if they can by capturing technology they did not earn or develop and forcing captured scientists to twist it to use the way they want, which is their background. Nothing of a negative nature. No tyrant race has ever invented or created anything new, ever. You cannot bring new things into creation through negative energy. It won't work. But they can steal and capture and use and all that kind of thing. They grow up in more terrorized subconsciously, on purpose, implanted to control them through the misuse of technology that perverts them to be tyrants in the universe. The Galactic Alliance people understand that history. So they don't, when they finished this war and struck a treaty, they didn't go back to their home worlds and blow all them up and kill all their kids. They just policed it because they're not tyrants. And they've had that thorn in their side for 500,000 years. Give you another example. There was a planet in our solar system that was blown apart from the core outward. It now circles in the orbit of an asteroid field or between Mars and Jupiter. A planet goes, what, 50,000 miles an hour around the sun? You blow that apart, it's already in a motion.
Stuart Swerdlow is mentioning that planet and calls it Maldek, right?
Maldek, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Blown apart. That's history that people on Earth should know, their own solar system history, because it affected Mars, caused polar flips, did all kinds of things. It affected the whole solar system in a negative way. The Galactic Alliance at that time did not intervene, and the negative influences resulted in that destruction. And it's been biting them in the ass for 500,000 years. This so-called non-interference thing. Well, let's put it this way. If you discover that beings on a planet like Earth are not operating from the true free will they think they have, because they're being misdirected and don't remember anything, especially their higher faculties, they can't make proper decisions that close down. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. If you find that out, and then you discover that beings on Earth were really your old relatives from out there, and you start to get motivated in a new direction, you're going to do something, if you can, to fix this incredibly backward planet somehow. They have the technology to do it. Anti-gravity ships are millions, hundreds of millions of years old. It's not new. The structure of DNA, the genetic science to keep bodies alive for thousands of years, that's not new. That's old. People on Earth haven't been able to take advantage of it.
But we have hierarchies here all over the planet. What you're mentioning in the, let's say in the reptilian world, in their planetary systems, whatever, and I guess the equivalent to that on Earth would be the financial system, right?
Sure, because money was not invented on this planet. Rome did not invent the concept of money. Tyrant royal family bloodlines was not created or evolved on this planet. It was imported here.
By the reptilians?
Well, them and others, not just reptilians. It's under a treaty.
Who else?
Okay. Little gray guys were controlled or dominated by a certain faction of reptilians.
But aren't they biological robots created like clones?
Yes and no.
Some of them.
There are worlds out there where the grays, certain grays, never were part of a reptilian alliance, part of the Galactic Alliance. There's still a few worlds with reptilians on them that are vegetarian that never were part of that never got into that whole swing of things. So it's very confusing for people on Earth. People talk about these blonde, blue-eyed Nordics, right? But not all of them are good. Some of them are and some aren't. It's very confusing for people trying to fish through who's good and who's bad.
It's not just black and white.
It's not because out there it wasn't. The people who are in the Galactic Alliance very clearly know all the differences and races. And they really police all that now to keep them outside our solar system so that this place has an opportunity to actually step up and take its place among the stars. To do that, we can't go out there the way we are shut down. We would cause havoc out and we all know it. With good intentions gone misdirected, it's all just nothing but nonsense. So first, this planet has to go through quite some transformation, a non-destructive one.
So you talked about President Eisenhower meeting with these alien beings and making a treaty. Do you think that other presidents over time have also?
I don't think that most presidents after the Kennedys were in the know on that one. It's classified above their pay grade.
But even if it's classified and it hasn't been leaked.
Yeah, some things have been leaked. You've got to remember, think about this. Back when the National Security Act was created, part of the bylaws in it were disclosed to the public when they felt they wouldn't panic. We were at a point at that time when we got the Soviet Union and communism and having bombs and getting it all from Nazi scientists and everybody competing. And meeting with extraterrestrials for the first time officially scared the heck out of generals in the United States, I can tell you. Even the good guys scared the pants off them because these guys had technology that, like, forget it. They wanted to take us over. It'd been done in 10 minutes, you know. So the only reason the bad guys that met with them didn't take over is because they were under treaty and they were policed. They tried a lot to get control of this place, and that failed. The effect it's had on the populace did not fail.
But how did it fail when there is a New World Order structure, a global power elite structure, keeping people, let's just say, unconscious about what is really going on, manipulated through the media and even through our educational system?
All that's true, but it wasn't done by them for the reasons most people proclaim.
But it's done for control.
It was done out of fear that they should know this stuff and keep it from the people, because they didn't know either how to deal with more powerful races from the stars. How can you keep an economy going at the end of World War II and get people to feel safe and be baby boomers and rebuild the destroyed cities if they knew extraterrestrials, good and bad, were coming here? It would mean our militaries couldn't even give people the sense of protection. So that's what they thought at the time. 35 countries were on board with signing this classified stuff. Not just the US, 35.
So in what way wasn't the power structure, the New World Order power elite agenda, not successful?
Watching this show with what I'm telling them is not being interfered with.
So they can't really keep everybody from not talking about these things anymore.
They're not trying to. They still have classified things they want to keep classified, like weapons and ray guns, and maybe they got guns in a new anti-gravity triangular ship or something. Baby stuff, technology.
But that doesn't mean the New World Order agenda is not successful.
The New World Order agenda, as you're calling it, was never established as a New World Order like Bush Sr. talked about.
And many others. Most presidents and prime ministers and movers and shakers, Henry Kissinger and others, very important elite people, talked about the New World Order, even back in the days of Hitler.
It's just a nice way of covering up something like the Illuminati or a secret organization. There's a government on this planet that runs things that are not elected people, that have control over elected people. That's true. Or you couldn't have a classified system. The Supreme Court in the United States doesn't function as a third balance of power and hasn't since the National Security Act was created. Why? Because the Supreme Court judges are not aware of what's classified. It's a contradiction in terms. It's not constitutional.
It's compartmentalized, right?
Correct. And it also means a funding system had to be set up to fund black ops and reverse engineering projects without most people in Congress or the Senate being aware of it. So they have seniority and minority leaders who read a document. I saw this on C-SPAN, live TV, and they're setting up this FEMA and
FEMA camps.
Well, when they were setting that up, this guy was reading to the people to vote on this, and here's how he was reading it. FEMA shall be set up and funded by classified, and it will set up these camps by classified. And he read through this whole document, and they had to trust that knucklehead and vote for it without knowing what it says. Nothing. You notice nothing's changed much since World War II, despite who was in the White House.
Right.
I do know that the Kennedys were informed by Eisenhower about the extraterrestrial issue, so they both knew, and they were both killed. After that, it's like, I doubt that Trump knows much about the extraterrestrial issue. I don't even think he cares about it. Okay, but he's done some things to make the country energy independent. That's pissing off a lot of people. He's done some good. But he's, I think all political people are pretty arrogant. They have to be tough enough to even run. You couldn't pay me $1 billion to be a politician. You couldn't pay me $1 trillion to be one. Forget about it. I got stuff to do. So, and I don't, when I do these talks, when I do this, I've never in my entire time since I came out to public thrown stones at the military industrial complex, Illuminati, royal families, the Queen of England, the classified people, or the people on Earth, because we're all in this together. This planet will take its place among the stars by getting everybody awake as to who they are, because when that happens, people will make correct decisions, not the wrong ones they're making now, which are destructive and negative.
So we are in a parallel dimension, right? We are in, there are many parallel worlds and many Earth-like places. Are we, let's say, the number one Earth, or are we number 2000?
No, we're number 3 out of 144.
Number 3.
Pretty low down.
Really? But how do you
The
know
third
that?
one, because I've been to these places, I know.
Please go into those details.
Okay, so now think of the matter in the universe. Let's say you take a Hubble telescope picture, time-lapse photography, and you see all these beautiful galaxies, billions of them out there. I've got one on my desktop, right? Just, you can't even count them. And they're whole galaxies with billions of stars in each one. And they're floating around out there with these blue giant stars here and there and some red ones. They're floating around out there in this black void, appears black, right? Because human eyes interpret frequencies beyond the physical light they can see with the rods and cones as black. It's not black. Those galaxies, the color images you see of galaxies with all the color and green and blues, you don't see those with physical eyes. They're in higher energy frequencies like infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray, all that kind of thing. And they're very beautiful. And they're floating around in this seemingly black void. All of that you see on that photograph is vibrating at the same molecular time rate. The body molecules in this body and eyes are vibrating at the same molecular time rate on Earth. So's the planet, so's our sun. In a parallel dimension, they're vibrating at a slightly slower or higher molecular time rate. So they're actually existing. They're actually physical worlds, but you've got to change frequency to go between them. Technology, antigravitic technology, long ago found this out. They turned on a craft the first time and it disappeared in front of them. They didn't know where it went. They lost pilots until they figured out that they were going into other realities and figured out the mapping system for all the doorways in the galaxy that were there already. They just take advantage of going through them.
Do you think that Nikola Tesla actually discovered this technology?
Sure he did. He wasn't from around here. Sure he did, but he couldn't get it established. I mean, he wanted to have free energy. The guy, J.P. Morgan in England, was backing him, and Edison. This guy wanted to make money off of it. So when Tesla figured out how to light light bulbs without wires in the ground from a tower, he came running into J.P. Morgan and says, "We can do it. Free energy." "That's good, my son. Go away. You did a good job." And then he canceled his funding the next day.
And then Edison became his enemy, really.
Because Tesla was like naive about the way this world works. And utopianistically thought he could just get it all out there, at the time. And that was naive. So he was suppressed. He tried to do the right thing, but he voiced it to the wrong person, his own backer. And that was the end of that.
So parallel dimensions, or we are at what, Earth 3? Please talk about that. How do you know that this is the third Earth, or how will you even describe it?
When you explore, as the Atma, when you wake it up, you have these abilities. You do too. And so do your listeners, without realizing it. When you wake it up, these other faculties, I can tell you what it's like. If I had a picture of it, I don't have it here. Okay, imagine a sphere. Let's call it this big. Okay? This is the individual you. In the center is a white core of radiant energy like the sun. I want to make this clear. The planets and moons and suns are round. Galaxies circle, although they're not round, they're more flat, but they have round things in them, are made after our image. Or they'd look like floating human beings with arms dancing around each other. Think about this. Who or what created the form that we call galaxies and planets and suns and stars? And what were they patterned after? Us. The real us, from the source. That's really key, because if I say that on live TV, it's going to trigger something in people that goes so far back in history, they're going to go, wait a minute. How come it seems familiar to me? Like I used to know that or something. What's he talking about? There's a white core, and then there's a layer that's yellow. It goes through the spectral color of light. And it's so thick and has little teardrop shapes in it that are energy, that are individual faculties. And then it has like a red layer. And then, well, see, yellow, red, then starts to get into the green area, just like taking a prism and breaking down light. And then it goes into a blue area, then lavender, violet, and it's surrounded by a golden energy field. This is energy that is energy, but not nuclear energy. It's not material. It's not positive and negative between two poles where there's good and bad and karma. It is an energy that is behind and supporting all that. And that's what we are, you and me, really. People remember that, the whole direction this universe is going will change. Worlds will still be there, bodies will still be there, but at least you'll know you're not one and you're running it. That's the difference.
But what is the evidence? Well, there's no evidence, I suppose, but what is the idea that we are on Earth number 3?
If you go out and explore the universe, as I do every day and every night, with others who do this and who are not from Earth and who come around in spaceships as well, and you go into these other dimensions and look at them and explore them and visit them, and a lot of times the inhabitants can't even see you because you're there in the Atma form, and it's not matter. They don't even know you're there. Then you can look at these things as the Atma. You can go up to that place, that first plane above the void, into a field of energy above that, the different planes that are there that are called pure positive. There's no positive and negative. There's no karma. There's no cause and effect there. There's no time and space as you understand it. And you can look at things from there and go visit things down the time track in the different levels and know this stuff and see it laid out. This needs to be experienced by people individually so that it doesn't just become data, but real knowing for them, remembering, recall, recovery. That's the Atma.
So there was a being or the beings that you're communicating with who explained to you that we are on Earth number 3. I don't know, how would you describe it?
They don't work that way. They don't do things for us by spoon feeding us information like data. No, that won't work. If you're spoon fed data, you still don't know if it's true. They work with me and work with others, and I work with them co-creatively the same way. I help and have contributed a great deal to them. It's not just one way. And they will get me to a point where I can turn on something or go and see it for myself, what they're saying. They don't give me information and leave me to my own resources. They give me information and then I'll go have the experience of verifying it by actually understanding it, knowing it inside my own being.
And that's where you discovered that this was the 3rd version of Earth.
Correct. Right.
And did you see other versions of yourself on some of the other Earth parallel levels?
No. No. That would be too complicated for an Atma to run that many bodies. For instance, if I had 144 Scott Lemriels on all these planes, it'd be a tough job to run them all.
Yeah, but if you can go to those dimensions, maybe you can see yourself if there are other versions of yourself.
Well, no, because when I go to those other places, I'm going there as me. I can even manifest a physical form and interrelate with people. But I don't interfere with their cultures. So, for instance, if I go there and I go to the next parallel dimension above the one we're at, which is not that much better. Then if I go to the 3rd one above where we're at, it's a world like Earth with no polar ice caps. And it has the continent of Lemuria on there and Atlantis on the other side that was destroyed in this world 100,000 years ago. when the poles flip. The poles never flip in that one. And it's a protected place, a highly evolved place. And beings work there from the Galactic Alliance. The Sayrays, Ambassador Tyrellian, you asked me at the beginning who he is. He's in 1 billion years ago, they immortalized their physical forms. They aren't from the Milky Way. They're not from Andromeda. They are human beings that evolved. They mastered genetic science a long time ago. They have 8-stranded DNA, but they're human and 18 to 25 feet tall when they had forms.
But non-physical now.
No, because their immortalization of the body was a process where they dematerialize the atomic structure, the DNA pattern, and store it in one of those little teardrops in their atma. They move around free of cause and effect, free of the speed of light, free of wormholes and dark matter, and can move around in matter. And then they use the energy of the omnipresent field, power up this DNA storage, and manifest the body to carry out a mission.
So you can see them when they manifest, or when this
Yes.
person manifests?
Sure, he'll just manifest the body.
So what
you
does
know
he
who you're
look
talking
like?
to. Well, he's 18 feet tall compared to one of us. And he's got these beautiful blue eyes and slightly pointed ears and long golden hair, and a kind of like a Greek god.
A little bit like,
You know,
beings in Avatar or Lord of the Rings.
He's taller than them.
Okay.
Okay, about 3 feet taller. And they're 15 feet supposedly in Avatar. Yeah, and what you'll see is he'll manifest a form, and then the Atma, the real him who I'm talking to, will be behind that form. So I know who I'm really talking to.
But we are also holographic in structure, right? Because we are really made of atoms, and atoms have no solidity. Am I right?
Correct. It's energy. It's a form. For instance, the atoms that make up my hand and the atoms that make up this glass top table doesn't go through it because it's moving at the same time rate. If I change the time rate up a bit, I could pass right through that matter. Right through it. Like the ships do to enter here. It's higher science. It's an understanding of energy that is not material or nuclear, that they have to understand to be able to get around the limits of nuclear matter.
All the different ET channelers and people who communicate with these extraterrestrial beings or interdimensionals or whatever they are, they usually always claim that they're in contact with the benevolent aliens and benevolent entities trying to do good, helping them to present the truth to the world, a secret hidden truth that nobody has been told before. Could those beings in fact really, in reality, be malevolent disinformers?
Sure. I'll tell you this. The way that for people to have a ruler, a handle on determining right discrimination about this issue, which is important, when you look at people talk out in the world, when they do a presentation, if they're bringing Armageddon fear or any kind of negativity about the future along with their so-called good message, they are being misdirected. Very few people come out and present something void of fear, doubt, speculation, theory.
Most people who are talking about these things are usually saying that we should abandon fear and overcome
That's
fear,
good.
saying no to fear. But
good.
understanding it in order to move from darkness into the light, so to speak, to put spotlight on the bad stuff as well.
That's true. Are they demonstrating or assisting people to do that, or just saying what people should do?
I think there are different people who do different things, but certainly
Okay, that's
also
good.
many people who have
because I'm not an enemy of anybody on this earth. If what they're doing makes you feel good, if what they're doing uplifts you or helps you remember what you were made to forget, helps you recover what you are that is not one of these, then I say it's good. Period.
And even though it may be a conflicting message or a different message from yours?
Sure, I don't care. Point is, if they're doing things that will benefit all life, it's good.
So just moving on to another topic, which is a very hot topic at the moment. the implementation and fast rollout of 5G all over the world. What are your thoughts on that?
We are working on Zoom now. You're recording this on your end from Denmark, lovely country. I like the Scandinavian countries and the people very much. Been to Norway, been to Finland, stopped in Copenhagen. Didn't have to spend much time in Denmark, but I'd like to.
You must.
Okay. Yeah, because it's great people, great country. People looking at this show right now is being run through a satellite system, probably through some form of 5G or maybe 4G, as it currently is, depending on what service you have, how updated it is and all that. And yet this show and what's being delivered on it is being done telepathically by me. That means I am a telepathic being and know it. So I'm working with you that's running that body telepathically and your audience all over the world, only for one purpose, for their benefit. I have no ulterior motive whatsoever. I'm not moved by the baubles of this worth, money, fame, or fortune. I can deal with such things, but that's not my motivation at all. Electromagnetic radiation is a new science on this planet. Came along with electricity and power transformers and high voltage lines. All that EM field. You know the reason that people get tired in jet lag on a flight to Denmark from the US and back? It isn't the distance across the planet. It's just one planet. It's the electromagnetic frequencies put out by the high-speed turbofan jet engines. Our bodies run at about 8 ohms like that of the Earth. Turbofan jets do not. And they create an electromagnetic vortex that's kind of draining to people that many hours. It's new technology. Jet engines and aircraft running on dinosaur fuel, that's new stuff since World War II. It's very new. Cell phones and the technology of chip technology that built them came out of extraterrestrial craft or given to us under treaty, one way or another. 35 years ago, there was an article in Popular Science, and it had stated that, and they got this from when somebody was working on it in a company that became classified. They developed a 1-inch cube of optical grown quartz and access it with lasers because the molecular structure of quartz is parallel. So they used molecules as bits in a computer, and they said they could put all the information in all the libraries of the world in that 1-inch cube. Then, so that means like Bill Gates and this kind of stuff and 5G is like way antiquated already. But for the public, all of these cell towers that are everywhere, all these transmission stations, everybody using cell phones, that's all frequency running through the atmosphere as thick as soup.
And we have frequencies as well. So we're being bombarded with this radiation all the time. And now it's getting faster and people are, you know, experiencing very severe health problems because of this.
That's right. Even riding on a jet or standing under a cell tower.
Some people say that 5G smart meters and also Internet of Things are connected with AI, which is artificial intelligence.
It's AI. It's artificial. It's a computer. Any AI is computer-based, but AI is not new in the universe. The AI that people use in other worlds to fly ships around is not like our computers here. It isn't electromagnetically dangerous. They conquered that a long time ago. What we need to do is retrofit this planet to use energies we're using in a shielded way, in a way that neutralizes the harmful effects. It's just common sense. But is anybody in all their greed and running around the planet deceiving and lying to each other interested in putting their money in the proper place today? No. Some are moving that way. Even billionaires are starting to work and to recover who they are. I know because some of my people are working with them.
So we don't have to worry about the 5G technology, even though it's causing some health problems, and we don't really know what it's causing because we haven't had it yet.
If you have people that put out products that shield this, you should investigate them. Because there are people doing that are aware, that want to neutralize this stuff. And some of them are pretty sizable companies. It's not popular enough to be in the mainstream yet, but people are starting to put it out. In the meantime, what I do personally to avoid being seriously affected by getting on an airplane to Denmark and back, for instance, I will work as the Atma, running the body, putting a field around it of energy that is putting out good for all life, that doesn't neutralizes these things. Because that's what it does. And it helps us get to the point to survive long enough to wake up until we can mechanically change it on this earth.
So is that your most important message for people all over the world now, and also people listening to this, but also in general? What is your most important message for people actually?
Simply this. The first half of the word human is a connective, vibratory, telepathic link between the being a person really is and the source behind all life that cannot be interfered with negative things. It bypasses time and space. If people want to recover and have the experience and the wisdom recovered in themselves where they're alive, it's really, I suggest they start to explore and experiment with it, because the first thing they're going to notice is that they feel centered and calm. They go into serenity of being, and it's uplifting to them. That's number one. Then they may experience some phenomena about stuff where they've got to try to remember some things that were done to them that put them here, that made them unconscious, and they need to recover that consciously. They aren't alone. If they want to work with the Hue, that beings will meet with them that are not tyrants, that will not invade their psyche. They don't force telepathy on them, and they will encourage people to come out of their shell and co-create working with them to get free. Co-create. That's the way benevolent beings not from Earth and from other realities work these days. They aren't tyrants. Tyrants would force telepathy on you or force something on you or tell you worship this or do that, because they want to control people and keep them stupid so they don't know anything in the lifetime they're living. We don't want that.
Will you sing that to us again, this mantra?
Let me do something for your benefit, only for that. No ulterior motive whatsoever. Friends I work with from out of town hear this and are connected to me when I do it. I don't channel them, they're right there. And I'm, because, you know, okay.
Very beautiful. If people want to get in contact with you and read more about your work and what you're doing, or have you to go to their place for a lecture or a presentation, how can they contact you?
The best thing is to go to paralleltime.com, PARALLELTIME.com, and go through the contact link page and send me an email. I will write back to them.
Great.
There's 2 books that are published. This one I've told you about. This is the first book of the Emerald Doorway. Now, here's the symbol I was looking for. You see what that looks like? How well can you see that focus to the camera? There we go. See the white sphere? These different layers? It's spherical, so imagine it is spherical. This Emerald Doorway is about what happened on this planet 100,000 years ago, just prior to the last polar flip. They're on anti-gravitic disks. That's this being's ship. It's a Galactic Alliance scout vessel, 30 feet across. This master teacher is holding a quartz crystal staff with an Egyptian Ankh symbol on top. It's a device. This is a little creature called the Dren. He's had a photographic memory, vocal cords, is silica-based, not carbon, not from Earth, and their species evolved the ability to defy gravity and fly through the air. He is showing them, or having them meet through an interdimensional doorway above the destroyed lands and new land masses forming. He's having them meet the source. What they don't realize at this point in this story is there's one of these hovering above each of their heads. that looks just like this. That's the emerald doorway. So if you go to these websites, paralleltime.com, totalspectrumpublishing.com, totalspectrumproductions.com, totalspectrummedia.com, they're all linked. People can find where they can get the books. I don't sell anything at the sites. There's no shopping cart. I don't take anybody's personal information that way. But the links go right to Barnes & Noble or Amazon or iTunes for the paperback or the ebooks, and they can just get them if they want. So, but they'll find out there's a lot of information and videos of my work, YouTube videos that's been produced, and one narrated by Jessica out of a company in New York that is promoting this worldwide. Very inspiring, uplifting, minute and 20-second long video. They can find them at that front page of that website. And it's all free. There's no charge for anything.
Great. It's been absolutely eye-opening, fascinating, intriguing, and I want to thank you very much, R. Scott Lemriel, for doing this interview with Age of Truth TV. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucas. I want to thank you, too, for having the courage to do what you're doing. You and your associates. I think you're an excellent host, radio show host. Just superb. And for me, it's been a real pleasure, too.
Thank you so much.
When it's in the future you want me on again, I'll happily come back on.
Thank you. That's wonderful. We would like that.
Thank you, Lucas. I wish you guys all at Age of Truth TV the very best and always will.
Thank you very much to R. Scott Lemriel, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. On behalf of the entire Age of Truth TV team, we thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.